Okay, good afternoon. And we're continuing with Mishnah 7, which was from Nitai Harabeli. And I'm going to put it on the screen so we can just, oops, there we go. Okay, so so far we talked about the idea of distancing ourselves from a bad neighbor and not connecting to Russia to a wicked person. Just a couple of more thoughts on that, and the last part is not to despair from punishment, which is somewhat connected as well. That um, the idea of connecting to a Russia. So one example that the sages give is now that you are going to be affected when something happens to that person, even if you yourself may not have been involved. Right? It was just a mere connection to someone else who is doing things wrong. When they get in trouble, it's going to affect you as well. And the one of the examples they give is in the time of we know the concept of tzaraat, right? That the Torah talks about this type of mark or whatever. It could be on the body, but it could be on a house as well, where some type of a mark or stain, whatever happens on a house, and if the Kohen deems it to be tameh, to be impure, then the house has to get destroyed. So if you have someone who's living in a attached property, right, a semi-detached or an attached property, and you're sharing a wall, and this person who had tzaraat on their wall, then the house is getting destroyed. Your wall's coming down with it because you're sharing the wall. So even though you were not directly connected to that person, but you were his neighbor and you got in trouble, it affects you. So that concept applies. Yes, it's hard to be totally removed from someone who is in your proximity, who is a person who is bad. Um, Another example they give is, if when you walk into a place like a tannery or something like that, which really has a bad smell. I think another example could be in the days when you were allowed to smoke in the bingo halls, when all they used to a lot of charities fundraise through bingo. Well, people who used to volunteer there would come home. They'd have to not only take a shower, they'd have to wash their clothes because it just comes to them. So you pick up the smell, you pick up the bad smell. That's just being in the proximity of something bad does have an effect on you, and it rubs off. Another idea which I saw connected to this was that some from the Vilna Gaon, who talks about the idea that a person has we know with the Yetzer Hara, right? We have a negative influence upon us, and there are two types of Yetzer Hara. There's the internal Yetzer Hara and there's the external Yetzer Hara. So the internal Yetzer Hara is kind of saying, oh, you'll enjoy this, whatever it is. It entices you to do certain things, whatever that maybe you shouldn't be doing. The external one is coming from other people, where other people are, or whether it's actual overtly they're saying to you, come join us, do this, etc., or just because you're in proximity, the peer pressure, you feel like you need to do it. That's an external pressure. And he says the external is much harder to fight than the internal. You could say to yourself, look, I'm not gonna eat that thing is no good for me, or I'm not gonna do this particular thing, even though it's fun, but I know it's not right or it's not good. When someone else is bringing from the outside, it's very difficult to withstand that pressure, and therefore, it's who we associate with is so important in that regard. And one last thought on this idea also is that um, a lot of times you'll say, oh, look, there's one bad person, so it's not such a big deal. But the fact of the matter is that I think the expression is one bad apple can ruin the whole basket, right? It one little thing can affect it. It can undermine all the good that you're trying to do by having one person there who's negative. It doesn't just even in terms of you're trying to get something going, right? You want to you're encouraging a group to do some project, whatever it might be, and you have one person who's totally negative, and they're very hard to combat that. They can undermine all the good you're trying to do, and it's kind of like a virus, right? When one small thing can infect who knows how many people, right? So too, one negative person can infect many, many people as well. And that's why we have to, be very careful in terms of who we associate with. Um, the idea of the last part of the Mishnah of Ve'al tisyaesh v'na puranas, don't despair from the punishment. So that also is sometimes you see other people. Oh, look, they're bad people, and they're having such a great time. Everything's good. Everything they're doing well. They're wealthy, whatever it is. And says, don't despair of punishment. They'll get theirs, and not necessarily just in the world to come. You think, oh, we know Hashem. We believe Hashem is going to punish everybody who did things wrong now. Eventually, they'll also doesn't. It's not only in the world to come. They'll also very likely suffer things here. Sometimes we don't really see what other people suffer. Sometimes, we think we think on the outside people look like they're happy, and a lot of times they're not. They just and sometimes they compensate for their lack of certain aspects of happiness by trying to buy things and to use their wealth in that ways. But when you get to the core of it, many people are really not so happy because or they have things happen to them in their lives, and there's nothing really that Hashem he takes care of it. The Rashi comments, so person who is wealthy, don't rely on that. You don't rely on the fact that you're wealthy because things happen. It can change in a dime. The stock market could crash. Anything could happen. And same thing on the flip side. When things are negative, don't despair because things can also flip on a dime and things can be recover very quickly and just in a moment. Actually, my Rosh Yeshiva, in our yeshiva, they used to have a sign. I probably still have the sign in the office, which is Yeshuat Hashem Keherafai, and the salvation of God is like the blink of an eye. Like just because let's say they didn't have any money and the payroll was the next day. Anything could happen. All of a sudden some donation comes in and boom, they got it right. You never know. The Rabbeinu Yonah also points about sometimes you think, oh, it's connected to the previous part. I'll connect myself with this person, and it's okay. Nothing's going to happen, and I'll get out before he gets in trouble. Or I'll only associate with this person some of the time, or while things are going well. He says you can't time it. You can't make it that, oh, I'm going to only be there when things are okay, because like I saying, things can change so quickly that you can get caught up with it as well. And another idea is that generally, a person should remember that things can change any time. And one less cute idea, which is brought, is a gematria idea that the word mammon, which means money or wealth, is spelled mem vav nun. And the gematria of that is 136. 40, 46, and 50, it's 136. The word for poverty is oni, ayin vav nun yud. It's also 136. They both have the same gematria. And then there's something called a sulam. A sulam is a ladder, and it's samach vav lamed mem. It's also 136. And when it comes to wealth and poverty, it's a ladder. Things go up and down, and it can change any time. What looks up now can be going down very quickly, and vice versa. So we should not be looking at, we see someone else has something. No, it doesn't mean anything. That's the way it is today. Tomorrow it could be totally different. And therefore, when it comes to connecting with other people, don't rely on what you see now in terms of you think that things are going well now. If that person is a negative person, you stay away from that person no matter what. And if the person is a good person, then those are the people we want to connect ourselves to, and those are the people who we're going to learn from, grow from, and ultimately be inspired by. Have a great